Leadership is about turning a vision into reality, and Ibrahim Traoré is proof of that. He took a country buried in debt and turned it into a role model, standing strong on its own. Chapter 1. A nation under debt. Burkina Faso, a landlocked nation in West Africa, has long struggled under the weight of economic challenges deeply rooted in its colonial past, once a French colony. The country's natural resources were exploited for foreign profit, leaving behind a fragile economic foundation. Even after independence in 1960, the country faced the legacy of underdevelopment, characterized by weak infrastructure, limited industrialization, and a reliance on exporting raw materials like gold and cotton. These exports brought wealth to foreign corporations, but little of it reached the people of Burkina Faso. The economic fragility deepened as successive governments borrowed heavily to fund basic development projects, leading to the accumulation of a nearly staggering $48 billion in debt. This debt was not just a numerical figure, it was a chain shackling the nation. The loans, often granted by international financial institutions and foreign governments, came with stringent repayment terms and high interest rates. Western lenders, in particular, imposed policies that prioritized debt repayment over social and economic progress. Vital public services, such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure, suffered immensely. The majority of Burkina Faso's population lived in poverty, unable to access even the most basic necessities. Meanwhile, the debt continued to balloon, creating a vicious cycle of dependency on foreign aid to keep the economy afloat. Western aid was marketed as a lifeline, but in reality, it acted as a leash, keeping the country tethered to external control, while the aid helped alleviate immediate crises. It often came with conditions that dictated domestic policies. These conditions, ranging from privatizing key industries to adopting austerity measures, frequently served the interests of foreign entities rather than the Burkinabe people. The reliance on aid perpetuated a sense of helplessness and dependency, eroding national sovereignty. Burkina Faso was caught in a web of economic neocolonialism, unable to chart its path forward without the looming influence of external powers. Amid growing public discontent, it became clear that the status quo was unsustainable. The crushing debt and reliance on foreign aid not only limited economic growth, but also undermined the country's ability to make independent decisions. The people of Burkina Faso, resilient and proud, began demanding change. They sought a leader who could break the cycle of dependency and restore the nation's dignity. This need for transformation set the stage for the rise of a leader who would not only challenge the system, but also rewrite the rules entirely. This long-term search gifted them the leader, Ibrahim Traoré. Chapter 2. Who is Ibrahim Traoré? Born and raised in Burkina Faso, Traoré's life was shaped by the struggles and aspirations of his people. Growing up in a modest environment, he experienced firsthand the hardships faced by ordinary citizens. These formative years instilled in him a deep sense of empathy and a determination to fight for a better future. His journey from a humble upbringing to a position of national prominence was marked by an unyielding commitment to his country. Traoré's military career became the foundation of his leadership. Rising through the ranks of the Burkinabe armed forces, he gained a reputation for his strategic thinking and unwavering dedication. His leadership style stood out as he consistently prioritized the welfare of his soldiers and the nation over personal gain. During a period of political turmoil and growing dissatisfaction with the government, Traoré emerged as a voice of reason and a symbol of hope. His rise was not a product of privilege or external backing, but of genuine support from the people who believed in his vision for a sovereign Burkina Faso. Traoré's philosophy was rooted in the principles of national sovereignty and economic independence. He understood that true liberation could only be achieved by breaking free from the chains of debt and foreign control. His vision extended beyond immediate economic recovery. It was about empowering the nation to stand on its own feet and take pride in its achievements. Traoré's ascent to power was driven by the growing frustration of citizens who felt betrayed by previous leaders who had prioritized foreign interests over national welfare. His promise to challenge the status quo resonated deeply, igniting a movement that would change the course of Burkina Faso's history. One of Traoré's greatest strengths was his ability to connect with the people. He did not lead from an ivory tower, but from the streets, listening to the concerns of ordinary Burkinabe and involving them in the process of rebuilding the nation. His transparency and willingness to address even the most difficult questions earned him widespread respect. Traoré's leadership style was not authoritarian, but inclusive, emphasizing equality and shared responsibility. This approach fostered a sense of unity and national pride that had been missing for decades. As Burkina Faso stood on the brink of economic and political transformation, Traoré emerged as the leader the country needed. Under Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, a series of bold, calculated strategies reshaped the country's economic and political landscape. Each strategy has been pivotal. Let's explore them one by one. Chapter 3: The strategies that transformed Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso's soil is rich with resources like gold and cotton, two pillars of its economy that had long been exploited by foreign interests. Traoré identified these industries as critical leverage points. He renegotiated contracts with foreign companies, ensuring a larger share of profits remained within the country. For years, multinational corporations reaped enormous benefits while leaving Burkina Faso with only scraps. Traoré demanded fairer terms, instituting policies that required foreign companies to pay higher taxes and invest in local infrastructure. This approach not only increased revenue, but also provided funding for education, healthcare, and rural development projects. By securing these deals, Traoré turned the nation's resources into a tool for empowerment rather than a curse of dependency. Next, Traoré understood that Burkina Faso could not thrive in isolation. He pivoted toward stronger regional collaboration, fostering partnerships with African organizations like the Economic Community of West African States and the African Union. These alliances emphasized mutual growth, trade, and shared resources beyond the continent. Traoré sought alternative allies in nations like China, Russia, and Turkey, moving away from over-reliance on Western powers. These partnerships offered investment opportunities without the political strings often attached by Western aid. For example, agreements with China and Russia brought infrastructure development and technology transfer, while deals with Turkey boosted agricultural and industrial capabilities. This shift diversified Burkina Faso's diplomatic and economic landscape, giving it greater independence in international affairs. Economic independence begins at home, and Traoré recognized the untapped potential of Burkina Faso's local industries. His administration invested heavily in agriculture, encouraging sustainable farming practices and introducing subsidies to support small-scale farmers. Cotton, a key export, saw improvements in processing facilities, enabling the country to export finished goods rather than raw materials. Beyond agriculture, Traoré pushed for the development of technology hubs and manufacturing industries, aiming to create jobs and reduce reliance on imports. Entrepreneurship was another focal point, with government programs offering microloans and training to encourage citizens to start their own businesses. This strategy not only boosted economic activity, but also fostered a sense of self-reliance among the population. Apart from these, one of Traoré's most controversial yet impactful moves was breaking away from predatory Western financial agreements. These contracts, often tied to high-interest loans, had kept Burkina Faso trapped in a cycle of repayment. Traoré canceled or renegotiated many of these deals, prioritizing agreements that benefited the nation rather than foreign creditors. He sought partnerships with institutions like the African Development Bank, which offered more equitable terms. This shift was met with resistance, but ultimately allowed Burkina Faso to reclaim its financial sovereignty. The message he wanted to deliver through this decision was clear. Burkina Faso would no longer be a pawn in the hands of exploitative lenders. At the heart of Traoré's strategy was a complete overhaul of the country's financial system. Corruption, which had plagued Burkina Faso for decades, was tackled head-on through strict anti-corruption measures. High-profile investigations and reforms ensured public funds were used efficiently. Tax reforms targeted the wealthy and foreign companies operating within the country, ensuring fair contributions to the national budget. For the first time, the government was able to allocate resources transparently, rebuilding public trust in its institutions. This financial discipline became the backbone of Burkina Faso's economic transformation. Chapter 4. The challenges along the way. While Traoré's strategies were bold, they were not without obstacles. His vision faced significant opposition, both domestically and internationally, testing his resilience as a leader. Traoré's decision to sever ties with exploitative Western systems was met with immediate backlash. Western governments, accustomed to exerting influence over Burkina Faso, launched efforts to destabilize his administration. Economic sanctions were imposed, cutting off vital trade routes and limiting access to international markets. Diplomatic pressure mounted, with Western media painting Traoré as a rogue leader threatening stability. Behind the scenes, corporations that had lost lucrative contracts worked to undermine his government, funding opposition groups and fueling discontent. Despite these pressures, Traoré remained steadfast, rallying his people around the idea of sovereignty and independence. Domestically, Traoré faced resistance from local elites who had benefited under the old system. These individuals, accustomed to profiting from corrupt practices and foreign aid, were reluctant to embrace reforms that threatened their privileges. Traoré's policies, while popular among the masses, required national unity to succeed. Mobilizing the entire nation that is diverse in ethnicities, languages, and political affiliations was no small task. Yet, Traoré's transparency and grassroots connections helped him bridge these divides, gradually fostering a sense of collective purpose. Apart from these issues, reforming an economy weighed down by decades of debt and dependency came with inevitable challenges. The transition away from foreign aid created short-term economic instability, basic goods became scarce, and inflation spiked as the nation adjusted to its new financial systems. Logistical and technological limitations further complicated efforts to modernize industries and build infrastructure. However, Traoré's administration worked tirelessly to overcome these obstacles, often relying on creative solutions and the resilience of the Burkinabe people. His ability to weather these storms ultimately cemented his reputation as a leader capable of turning adversity into opportunity. Simply, the repayment of Burkina Faso's debts marked a turning point in global economic history. Chapter 5. Repaying the $48 billion debt. Ibrahim Traoré's strategy to reclaim his country's sovereignty was meticulously executed. Leveraging every tool at his disposal, revenues from renegotiated resource contracts, fortified regional alliances, and rigorous financial reforms came together like cogs in a well-oiled machine. Each milestone, from the first repayment to the final eradication of debt, symbolized more than just financial freedom. It was the reclaiming of a nation's destiny. Public sentiment soared as Burkina Faso transitioned from a state of dependency to a model of resilience. Confidence among citizens, once battered by poverty and foreign control, flourished under visible economic improvements. Roads are being paved, schools are being built, and the GDP is climbing steadily. Rural communities, long ignored, are experiencing unprecedented development. Poverty levels are dropping, not due to handouts, but through opportunities being created by localized industries and inclusive policies. Globally, Traoré's success sent shockwaves through traditional economic power structures. For decades, Western aid was seen as the lifeline for developing nations, often accompanied by exploitative terms. Traoré challenged this norm, proving that self-reliance, when paired with strong leadership, could achieve what decades of aid and loans could not. His bold approach inspired other African leaders to question the status quo, sparking discussions on sovereignty and economic justice across the continent. Totally. Burkina Faso has become a symbol of what's possible when a nation takes control of its destiny. Traoré's leadership has set a precedent, not just for African nations, but for every country battling the weight of debt and dependency. The road ahead is one of sustainable growth, with a focus on innovation and empowerment for the world. Burkina Faso's transformation is a clarion call. It's proof that independence, when paired with vision and determination, is not a distant dream. It's an attainable reality.